Hello and welcome. My name is Desiree Shaw. I'm a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. My aim is to make therapy accessible for all. I'm aiming to change the face of therapy so that it takes a different form to what we know as therapy. As the therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists that we're used to seeing, I'm aiming to change the way that appears to those who can sometimes be put off by therapy because what they may think therapy involves. So join me on my mission to creating access to therapy. Please like and subscribe, share, comment, and support me on my mission to reach as many people as possible and provide tangible support and help. My name is Desiree Shaw. Thank you for watching. I watched the recent film, The Hate U Give, which is about a young black girl living in America who witnesses a policeman kill an innocent black male. And while I was watching it, it dawned on me, as it always dawns on me, one of the reasons why I'm in therapy is the psychological warfare that actually takes shape in the minds of, I'd say, every person of colour, particularly black people. And I say the psychological warfare because it's not an easy task being black. There is a lot of anxiety, depression, shame, guilt, hurt involved in being black. And this film really sums it all up really well, in my view.
Out of the car! Yo, Star, you okay?
Go back where he told you. Khalil, I'm not playing. Go back where... What did you do? Today, Garden Heights.
The lead is, her name is Star, with 2 R's, which is a beautiful name. She lives in a predominantly black neighbourhood, which is known as the ghetto, basically. She does not go to the high school because her parents want better for her. As the high school, you go there if you are going to get pregnant, get shot, get hurt, basically not learn. So she goes to the school, which is predominantly white. And she describes this as when she gets into her Star 2 mode. So this is the second version of her. And when she says this part in the film, when she says this bit in the film, I can identify, as I think many black people can identify with, the second version of themselves when they're out in public or they're intermingling with people who are not of the same race of them, particularly in the workplace. Now, the workplace has very different dynamics for everybody. However, as a black person, there's an ultimate dynamic that you have to be aware of, and this can wreak havoc on your anxiety, your depression, stress, pressure, worrying about how you're going to be perceived all the time, because before anybody notices anything about you, they've recognized that you're black. So you don't become a man, you become a black man, and everything that stigmatizes that also. And this is the psychological warfare, which is real, which is happening, and which does cause a lot of damage to us as people.
School is where you go to get jumped, high, or pregnant. We don't go there. Williamson is another world, so when I'm here, I'm Star version 2.
Yo, those kicks are lit!
Basically, Williamson Star doesn't give anyone a reason to call her ghetto, and I hate myself for doing it. Until the weekend comes around.
The film touched on many parts of what we actually know as life as a black person. So being the only black person in an all-white school, you get or in an all-white workplace or in an all-white area, there's always one or two which want to appropriate blackness and become a caricature of a black person, which is very, very stressful as black people to have to deal with these caricatures, because most of the caricatures which are bestowed on us don't actually reflect the life that we actually live. So we end up having to mix and blend and pretend or demonstrate that we aren't really happy with this form of appropriation, which kind of is a bit discriminative, to be quite honest. This can lead to a lot of depression and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, because you can go out into the world as a black person and then start to wonder, what are they going to label me as this time?
I get those goosebumps every time.
What's up? Where you been? Man, I know you be hanging with all the white kids.
Shut up. Yeah, when you're not around, when you go that
The film is beautifully done, I think, and it also demonstrates how we keep ourselves oppressed as black people in a neighbourhood where you've got the drug dealers who and the bad guys basically, who create this world of you're not allowed to snitch. I hate that word, snitch. This term snitch only benefits the person who is dictating that they are not snitched on. So the idea is that you go to prison for somebody else because you mustn't snitch, because they're the above all higher being and they must be protected. Says who? Meanwhile, keeping a whole community of people in poverty, in pain, in anguish, in depression, because they're quite happy making the money that they're making, so nobody must stop that. The film actually highlights this beautifully, absolutely beautifully. I was really impressed by this factor, because this is also really stressful. You know, you got young people who are drawn into a lifestyle that they didn't really think about because they're young, and they get stuck with it because they're not allowed to snitch, and because they're not allowed to snitch, they are paying the price for something which wreaks havoc on their anxiety and their depression. It just increases, and they can't talk about it. And when they do get an opportunity to talk about it, they're faced with somebody in the therapy room that cannot relate to them in any shape or form. So then they feel furthermore isolated and distant from any help. Hence my reason for making therapy accessible. I think the film has a really good point, many good points, and the psychological warfare being a major factor, which I think really stands out for me.
It's best if she don't talk to father.
He's threatening her. It's about more.
There's a part where Star has to face one of her friends who appropriates blackness, and she has to deal with the fact that the school that she's in uses the death of her friend who she witnessed as a means to have a day off, and they all become, you know, this is really bad, isn't it? And they're enjoying how wonderful the day is that they're going to have off, but it's really bad that a black guy got killed. Oh dear. But he was a drug dealer, wasn't he? And they start making excuses. Very quickly this is done. I mean, whether a person is evil or not, if they've been killed innocently, they've been killed innocently, you know? And in this case, he was killed innocently. And people were able to benefit from that by having a day off school and not knowing the real reason as to what was going on. This was a difficult part for Star. She started to realise how different she was to the people that she actually goes to school with. This is probably something that happens for most black people. When you're in the workplace, you start to realise how different you are when people make comments about things in the newspaper, or they make prevalent suggestions about things pertaining to the colour of your skin, which is very difficult to have to deal with, and you're constantly having to have this voice in your head telling you that you're okay. You know, you're keeping yourself calm, you're keeping yourself sane, because you don't want to act black and fall into the labels that they place on you. So Star actually experiences this, and she finds it so difficult that she flips out on her friend, because her friend decides that the cop was in the right and this other guy deserved it, not knowing the ins and outs of the situation. This is something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. The stresses of being black are never ever ending, particularly when you go into the corporate world and you're working with other professionals and you find you're the only black face there. It's even worse. The warfare increases. the anxiety increases, and the depression starts. The difficulty of dealing with two worlds is that you can become trapped. So if you come from the corporate world, or as Star is in the world of her school, which is all white, then you go into your black world, and which can be perceived as being ghetto. The two conflict, and it's like, who are you? Are you two people? When actually you're three, because you're one for one and one for the other, and then for yourself, which is the difficult part. And this is the bit where we remain stuck in behaviors and thoughts which drive our emotions further into an unhealthy negative state, because we just sometimes don't know who we are, and we find it very difficult to manage, because we're having to deal with the anxiety of what the perceived threat is out there because we are black. And then we are dealing with the loss of everything, basically, because actually we had nothing, and because we have nothing, we're creating so much based on what we have right now. The worry is it's going to be taken away. And when we witness young black people being killed innocently, it highlights just how nothing we actually still are in the eyes of our oppressors, because we are still being oppressed. Even though we go into the corporate world and we make it in certain areas and we do certain things and we achieve, we are very, very, very much aware that we have to be slightly different, if not extremely different, to how we want to be, because we're black. And everything we do is based on the fact that we are black, that we have to be not just double, but triple, quadruple careful about everything, because we're watched in such a way it could actually be a matter of life and death. And the hate you give really sums that up really nicely, because there is a part where we're doing it to ourselves by keeping the drug dealer safe, the no snitch rule, and how this is being passed down to young people. And then there is the real part where we go into the corporate world and we're still treated differently, and we're still having to appropriate ourselves in order to fit in. And it's difficult, it's stressful. It is really stressful being black. Now, I say it's stressful being black, but I wouldn't be any other way than the way that I am. I'm really happy with that. But I am very much aware that there is so much stress that goes on for us, that our perceived threat is always looming. We don't know if we're going to hang on to the job. We don't know if somebody's going to write something about us and trigger us into a behaviour which they are hoping that we do because we're black. Whereas when you think about it, aggression is not just owned by black people. Anybody can be aggressive. But if you're black and aggressive, you're dangerous. And if you're a woman and you're black and aggressive, you're an angry black woman. If you're an educated woman and you're black, you're a scary black woman. I get called scary, not by people of colour, funnily enough. In a working environment with a smile on my face, being friendly, I'll be told by a person who is not black that, oh, a bit scary, and I don't understand why, because I didn't do anything, I didn't roar at them, but I understand the labelling, and that's quite stressful for me. And I'm one person, there's billions of us out there, we're all feeling this stress, and it really does wreak havoc, and it really does create depression, and it really can ruin lives. So what is my point? Well, in life there is, in America the racism is very open, it's very clear. In the UK it's subtle, it's very underhand, and it's what I call discreet racism. And discreet racism for me has been the worst experience that I could experience, because if somebody's blatantly racist with you, then you fully understand where they come from. But when they say things like, your hair's really different, isn't it? How come you all wear weave? We don't. So how come your skin's so different from our skin? Is that what you do? And you're like, I don't know what you're doing. and you start to get stressed because you don't want to be put into that box and you don't want to feel stressed out. But it does happen, and we do have to deal with it, or you know, start to goad you into behaving aggressively and label you in ways which aren't really you. That kind of stress doesn't just go away. That kind of worry doesn't disappear. It's real, and it's been real for hundreds of years. And as a nation of people, we're learning how to mask it, but we've got to a point where we can't stand it anymore. We just can't tolerate it. Truth is, we can tolerate it because we have been tolerating it. We can stand it because we're extremely strong, and that's what brought us to this place. So when you watch this film, The Hate You Give, what you take from it is something that you could actually use on a daily basis, and just make some small changes for yourself and some small changes for your loved ones, so that it just allows everybody in your community and in our community as black people to understand ourselves more, that yes, we are stressed, yes, this is uncomfortable, and being black is dangerous, and it has been. But as much as it is dangerous, it's a very powerful, amazing race to be a part of, because we survived, because we are strong. And because we've changed so much, there is so much in history that provides us with proof that we can make some more changes. And right now we really do have to. It would be in our interest for us to start facing the anxiety and the stress and the mental health that is within our community, because this is what is driving us to a lot of mishaps and stresses, suicides, murders, so many other things which happen, which if we tackled it head on, we could actually deal with it. And this is what Star's message is basically in the film. Don't lose your voice. Use it. Don't lose it, use it. Very powerful message, very powerful film. I hope you go and watch it, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Please like and share this video. My name is Desiree Shaw. Thank you for watching.